My name is Felicia Gross, and I am the Midwest Area Director at NAMAT USA. And I just want to welcome you. This is the Greater Chicago Council program, and we're going to learn how to make an apple challah. And I don't know about you, but I love apples. It's one of my favorite fruits. Apples and cinnamon, and I'm there.
Really?
So a couple of housekeeping things.
Yeah.
We are recording this, and for I will be sending you a link when I get it from Deanna McDowell, so that you can go out. I've been told that it will also at some point be posted to NAMAT's YouTube channel. And for those who do not like
everyone so we can hear you.
Please mute. I'm sorry, what?
Let's mute everyone so we can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Hold on.
You know, there's two pieces in here.
Elena Dermer.
Okay, can everyone hear me now? So again, if you didn't hear me, I'm Felicia Gross, Midwest Area Director of NAMAT USA, and I want to welcome you to Greater Chicago Council's Apple Challah Bake program. Thank you very much for coming. I am glad to see some of you and put face to names of a lot of you. So a couple of things, as I was saying, we are recording this. So you will be able to watch it in its entirety, this program. If you have to leave early or you want to refer back to something, I will be getting the links. I'm told it will be posted to YouTube. And I also know that some people prefer not to be recorded, so I'm giving you a heads up if you want to blank your screen. Okay, so as I'm guessing most of you know, but I don't think everyone here knows a lot, not everyone here is a NAMAT member. NAMAT is a nonprofit volunteer organization that partners with NAMAT Israel. And what we do is we provide vital educational social services to women, children, and families in Israel. Our focus is on them, the women and children and families of Israel. We are international. Besides having membership, members in Israel and in the United States, we have them in Brazil, Mexico, Canada, Belgium, Argentina, and other countries. And our members are, as our members know, we are a very dynamic and intelligent and passionate group of women. Okay, and our goal in Israel is to advocate for women's rights, gender equality. We want to empower women in Israel, and we want to improve the status of women in Israel. That's some of what we do. And I'm now going to say a quote from one of my biggest heroes, Golda Meir. She was a national secretary and a president of NAMAT in the days when it was Pioneer Women in the 1930s. And she is quoted as saying, "NAMAT is the first and last women's organization for which I have ever worked." And as I said, I'm a really big fan of Golda Meir. If I had had a daughter, one of my daughters would have been named Golda because of her. Okay, so just to remind everyone of all the fun, amazing things that we do in Israel, we provide quality daycare for over 17,000 children in Israel in our daycare centers. We have legal aid bureaus that provide assistance with issues related to domestic violence, divorce, workplace discrimination, and sexual harassment. The Glickman Center has been renamed the NAMAT House. It's in Tel Aviv. And there we provide shelter and counseling to women and children. And we have also started a program for what they feel are treatable male perpetrators. And we have like a 90% success rate with treating men with issues of violence. And I would like to quote you again. This is from Yael Levin, who's the director of the NAMAT House in Tel Aviv. "We accept women from all social groups, ethnicities, and religions. We accept citizens and non-citizens, including refugees. When a woman reaches our shelter, it can be a turning point for her. It can be the beginning of a new and better life." We also have women's health and empowerment centers in Carmel and Sderot, and that provides education. They provide educational and counseling services. We do a lot of stuff. We have 2 youth villages, which are also boarding schools for at-risk youth. And we have technological schools that educate over 3,500 students and provide special individualized training for students that are at risk and students with learning disabilities. And we have these technological schools in both the Jewish and Arab sectors. Okay, during the coronavirus crisis, Na'amat USA and Na'amat Israel has stepped up to the challenge. We have raised money rather for the daycare centers because, you know, they require a lot more cleaning supplies, masks and stuff like that. And they have to clean and sterilize all the toys, you know, every little puzzle piece. And so we've been raising money for them. We've been raising money for the youth village called Kanot because they are expecting more students than usual because of the crisis and issues. We set up a hotline in Israel that operates 24/7 throughout Israel to help because unfortunately, because of the COVID virus and because of people being in close proximity, domestic violence increased substantially. So those are some of the reasons, some of the things that we do at Na'amat, and one of the reasons I'm proud personally to be associated with this amazing organization. If you are not a member, I would urge you to consider joining us because we do such vital work and it's such an amazing group of women. And then I would like to say Na'amat, empowering women in Israel since 1925. We are 95 years old this year. And then I'll just sort of end with, there's a lot of programs that I've been thinking about that I would like to implement that are coming down the pipeline, like for Hanukkah, talking about unusual and more exotic latke recipes, and then as a show of unity, all of us lighting our Hanukkah to bring the light into this world. Other programs related to the holidays, like talking about interesting charoset recipes for Passover. I have found a couple of articles with recipes that are international, coming up with some really fun, interesting, unusual hamantashen recipes for Purim if we want to bake hamantashen. I found one that has as the filling Nutella. And for those of you who don't know what Nutella is, it's like a nut butter, but the butter is chocolate powder and hazelnut. To die for. I just love that recipe. Maybe for Shavuot, we could do cheesecake or try and find a really straightforward recipe for kanaf. My chazan told me that kanaf is a very popular dairy recipe in Israel. And finally, I would like to say, if you have any ideas for future programming, please email me. I could send a chat around with the email address. If you would like to be one of the demonstrators, if you know how to bake something or cook something or know how to make something like like crochet, not necessarily cooking, please let me know. I would love to talk with you. And finally, save the date. This December 13th, there is going to be a one-day virtual tour of Israel through Na'amat, and we're going to be learning about olive oil. And I know that the information is coming out, the flyer is coming out soon, so be on the lookout for it. It is December 13th. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Marlene Kerstein. She kindly, and I can't thank her enough, volunteered to demonstrate how to make this unusual challah. And so now I will take it away and give the screen to Marlene. And I just want to say, I'm apologizing in advance. I'm new to managing Zoom meetings. So in case there's a glitch, it's all on me. Now let me there's Marlene, and I'm going to make her the spotlight. Thank you, Marlene.
Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me? Alicia, can you hear us?
Everyone else should be muted, but if you can't hear, I'll start scrolling away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. It's a pretty dreary night in Chicago, but it's nice to have people from all over the country. As Felicia said, my baking skills are better than my technology. So if you need me to do a close-up or anything, shoot Felicia a chat or a comment, and we'll make sure that you can see things. Unfortunately, we can't do the recipe from the start to the end because we would be here for 4 hours because of the rising. So I've already made the dough. So we're starting at step 5. But we're going to go through the ingredients, and then we'll go through how you actually put the apples in and how you make the challah and put it in the oven and that sort of thing. I like this recipe for a few reasons. It has been on Facebook the last few years, so some of you may be familiar with this. It's been a couple different places. Jamie Geller is one of my favorite chefs. She's from New York. She's kosher. And she's just delightful. She has some great recipes. It's a round challah, so that's symbolic for Rosh Hashanah. If you're intimidated by braiding, there's no braiding involved. And I read an article this week in JUF News that because of everything going on this year, we're really supposed to infuse more sweetness into our meal. So with the apples, that's a way to do it. We typically dip the challah or apples in honey. If you dip this challah with apples, but then in honey, you really have a sweet year. We're hoping for, for some of this to end soon. It's going to be, it's been crazy for everyone. It's affected everyone. We just want everybody to stay healthy. So let's start with the ingredients. You should have the recipe in front of you. For the dough, you use if you're not familiar with using yeast, the trick with yeast is it has to be fresh. I mean, it can be, you store it in the refrigerator, but it can't be 10 years old. And how you're going to know that it's activating is when it foams up. So when you initially put the warm water with the yeast and the sugar, after 10 minutes in the bowl, it should have a layer of foam on top. And if it doesn't, the yeast is probably not good. You probably want to get new yeast and start all over because it's not gonna rise as it needs to. Sugar, just granulated sugar. Where it says for the dough, 2 eggs plus 1 for basting. I think the first time I made this, I threw 3 eggs in. Really, just 2, and you keep 1 for the end to baste it for the, to have it a nice golden color. Salt, canola oil. She recommends just a smidgen of sesame oil, and you really need just a drop, but she said it makes a difference, and this is what it looks like, if everybody can see this. All-purpose flour, and that's for the dough. And then for the filling, it says Granny Smith apple, but you really can use any kind of apple. I like the tart sweet contrast, but if you want it really sweet, use a Rome or use a Macintosh or a Gala or a Pink Lady, whatever you want to do. But you want a large apple, 1 large apple, and you'll see what we're going to do with that. And I always have, I make a lot of mandel bread and a lot of recipes with cinnamon and sugar, so I just have a container sort of.
Marlene, we lost you a little bit.
I lost who?
You drifted off a little bit.
Oh.
Just so you know, but you're
okay.
back. That's all.
All right, sorry.
No.
This is a container that I keep with sugar cinnamon mixture. It's like 2 to 1, 2 tablespoons of sugar for 1 tablespoon. 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. And I keep it around because you're going to use it for this recipe, but you can use it for a lot of things, and it's just easier to have a shaker. And then at the end, she recommends, I don't know if people are familiar with this is sugar in the raw. It's a little bit different consistency, and I'll show you how we're going to use that at the end. Okay, so Felicia, are they seeing this?
I assume so because I can see you perfectly.
Okay.
So if someone doesn't, send me a chat, please.
Right, so if you have any questions on the ingredients, so basically, if you're gonna make the dough on your own, and I'm gonna take it from step 5. But we can go back if you want, if you have any questions on anything else, okay? So basically, you've made the dough, you let it rise once, you punch it, you let it rise again, so you're talking about 2 hours there. And now you have, it should have doubled in size. Can you see that? And you're gonna flip it onto a very well-floured board. You can use.
Could you tilt it toward the camera you're speaking to? Because I don't know if anyone saw it on.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, so I have a pretty, it didn't start off like this. I mean, it was probably half the size. So you're just gonna flip it. It's a little sticky, so make sure you have either a silicone mat, is what I like to use, or a wood board or a parchment paper, but make sure you have a nice layer of flour because this is gonna be a little sticky. So you're gonna flip this on here. Okay, you can see it's a little sticky, which is fine. But you have flour, so you're just gonna roll it out a little bit with the flour, okay? Can you see that? Felicia, so far
Yes.
so good?
Yes,
Okay.
so beautiful. Sorry. I'm responding.
Okay. So it's a little sticky, but it's gonna be it'll be okay to roll now. So then you're gonna take your rolling pin. I'd like to put a little flour on that also, just to make sure that it doesn't stick. Always have a little extra flour for, as they call it, dusting. All right, so your goal now is to, and this does not have to be perfect. What's nice about this challah, you can mess it up and it'll still be delicious. So you want to roll it into a rectangle, 1/4 inch thick. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. More like an oval, but it can, you know, just as long as it's a little longer than the width. Can you see that? Should I tilt this up? Can you see this, the shape of this? Whoops.
A rectangle.
Yes, a rectangle. Okay, about 1/4 inch thick. Okay, now this is the fun part. So you take the one apple and you slice it into thin slices. Okay? Can you see
peel
that?
it?
Yes, you peel it and into thin slices. And leave, you can do 2 or 3 rows, but you need to leave 8 pieces of the apple for the end. Okay? So however you do it, leave 8 pieces for the end. Okay, now what you're gonna start doing, you're gonna put the apples, lay them towards the bottom of the rectangle, probably put about 6 to 8 pieces across. Can you see what I'm doing? Can they see, Felicia?
Yes, yes.
Okay, 6 or 8 pieces across.
This
And
is
just-
the part that's yummy.
Okay, just pat them in. And if you have a little shaker, or just make a mixture of the cinnamon and sugar and give it a good sprinkle. If you like a lot of cinnamon, put a little bit more. If you don't like it, just put in, you know. Okay, now this is the fun part. You take the layer and you roll it onto itself. So you roll it forward. Okay? Everybody get that? So you're gonna do 2 or 3 layers. It really doesn't make any difference. So now I'm gonna lay my apples again, right on top. And you can't mess this up too much, because at the end you can sort of fix it up. All right, again, I have 7 pieces of apple across. I'm gonna give it a shake. I'm rolling it again. Okay. And stretch it a little bit. You'll fix it at the end. All right, I have room for 1 more layer. So I'm repeating.
I'm going to just switch quickly to gallery view so we can see each other for a minute.
I'm going to sprinkle again the cinnamon sugar mixture, and now I'm rolling it again. So this is my last roll. Okay, and this is when you fix it a little bit. Make it even. Just use your hands. Can't mess it up. Okay, so you have a log. Everybody see that?
Hold on, I'm putting you back on. All right. There you go.
Okay, so you have a nice log. Can you see that?
Can you tip it up a little?
I'm going to try. See?
Perfect.
Okay, so it's about the length of the rolling pin. All right, now what you're going to do, and I like to use a pizza cutter. It's just easier. You're going to cut this in 8. Try to make them equal. Okay, So cut it in half first. Then 4 on each side, just cut through it. You can use a sharp knife also. It's a little sticky, but that's good. That's okay. And there's a few, the middle pieces are a little thicker. It's okay. Okay. Then you have a bundt pan, and my recommendation is grease it really well. I greased it with canola oil all over and on the tube also. And then I like using canned baking spray. There's a specific one for baking, just to give it an extra that it'll come out. Okay, so grease it really well because you don't want your beautiful challah stuck in the pan. Okay, now you're going to take the pieces and you're face down. You're going to just put them. I'm going to do 2 and then I'll put the rest in. You just line them in the bottom. And again, it's going to all sort of mush together so you can't mess it up. So you start putting them around like that.
Excuse me, Marlene, I had a question. When you say putting it in upside down?
Cut side down. Cut side down.
Oh, cut side down. That's why I'm not hearing great. Love, thank you.
Okay. Sorry. All right, so just go all the way around. A little sticky, but that's okay. Okay, so they all fit in there, see? Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, now remember I told you to leave 8 pieces of apple. So you're gonna take 1 piece and just wedge it in between each of the pieces that you put in there, the pieces of dough. Sort of like a barrier, so you're just adding more apple. Just wedge it in between and it's gonna bake into the challah. And I'll show you. See, I'm just wedging it in here. Can you see? All right, so there's a piece in between each of the sections. Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, then remember where in the ingredients it said leave 1 egg for basting. So you're gonna baste it generously on top. Just take a pastry brush and just add a layer because that'll give it the nice golden brown. And you only use about 1/2 an egg. I use one. I'm not even done with this for 2 challahs tonight because you're going to see a finished product in a minute. Okay, then you take the sugar, the raw sugar. Again, I would shake a little bit in your hand of this and just put some on top. Just give it a nice little covering, about a tablespoon altogether. See, so this part goes really fast. Unfortunately, it's making the dough that takes a long time just because of the rising. So this is what it looks like. Okay. And what you want to do now, before you put it in the oven, you let it sit for another 45 minutes so everything sort of melts together and it'll rise a little bit more. Leave it for 45 minutes on the counter, then put it in the oven for 30 to 35 minutes. Just keep testing it. And you'll see when it's ready. Okay, so here's the one that's gonna go in the oven in 45 minutes.
What temperature?
350. That should be, yeah, it's on there. And like I said, start watching it in about 30 minutes, okay? So earlier today, right before I made one. So here's what it looks like in the pan. Okay, nice and golden brown. I greased it really well. So I'm hoping that it pops out. I'm gonna give it one more little, I'm gonna go around one more time. Especially the center. The center sometimes sticks. Let's hope.
Yay.
Hey, it looks beautiful.
And you have a beautiful apple challah. Can you see this?
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes, lovely.
And what you can do, because today's only Thursday and Rosh Hashanah is not till next Friday, what I've been doing is wrap it real tight in saran wrap and then put it in foil, throw it in the freezer, and then to heat it up, maybe 10 minutes in the aluminum foil. And it should taste good as, you know, real fresh.
That looks great.
It's just kind of fun and it's sweet and it's something a little different. Oh, what I didn't mention earlier on, I started making this a couple years ago and I made this and I bought challahs and our guests basically said, don't bother buying challahs anymore. We really love this. It just, you know, it's a unique challah.
Okay, so if you have questions, I've gotten a few in. And I'm going to start asking Marlene if that's okay with you, Marlene?
Sure. I'm sorry if I talk fast. I tend to talk fast.
No. Okay. So one person's, I think this was already asked, but maybe this is someone else. You have never used it with gluten flour. So
I have not. I don't know. Maybe somebody else can speak to that. I just have never baked with gluten flour.
Or gluten-free flour. Yeah. Sorry.
Gluten-free flour. So if anybody has a response, jump in.
If you have a response, unmute yourself. One way to unmute yourself is to temporarily press on the space bar. Maybe now what I'll do is I'll bring us to gallery.
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes.
I have an egg allergy. Can you brush the challah with anything other than egg?
Oil.
Yeah, I was going to say a little olive oil I would put.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's egg in the challah.
Wait.
The challah doesn't have the saturation that the egg on the outside does.
Okay.
Because there's so many more ingredients.
Okay. I mean, there are some challah recipes without any egg in it. I know that. So I'm just wanted to make clear that there are eggs in this one.
Thank you.
Okay. And someone asked if the apple slices add moisture to the challah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not so dry. Yep. And again, use the apple, the type of apple that you like. I like the tart, but if you like a little sweeter, use a sweet apple.
Okay, I'm looking. Does anyone else have a question while I look through the chat questions? Again, all you have to do is to press on your space bar and hold it down and you can unmute yourself temporarily.
Just like I said, if you're not used to using yeast, make sure that the yeast is fresh and it will bubble up a little bit.
Have you ever pre-cooked your apples partially?
I haven't for this one. I mean, you're cutting them pretty thin. There's another recipe that you make and you do soften them a little bit, but they get pretty cooked because you cut it really thin. You slice them really thin.
Aaron Boren, Lori.
I wanted to ask if you put
The sesame?
the slices down with the cut side, how do you put them down? Sideways or with the cut side down and up?
Cut side down. So the
Yeah,
nice
cut-
side is sticking up. Yeah. if you
Right.
can see, yeah.
Yeah. And if you
But
didn't
again,
have a wood,
nobody's going to criticize you for that. I mean, this is
Yeah.
how it's sort of foolproof. Once you
Yeah.
get the dough made, it's pretty foolproof.
yeah, it's pretty in the bun pan, but if you don't have that, do you think you could use a regular tube pan? It just wouldn't come out quite as rounded on
Right,
the
you
edges.
should be able to, yeah.
Yeah, you did a really good job. You're the Jewish Julia child.
Oh, thank you.
Marlene, when you reheat it, do you do it on heat like 200 for 10 minutes, or how do you reheat yours? And also, I assume you take the plastic off. I mentioned
Take the
that.
plastic off, just put it in aluminum foil. Like I would do it on 350 for maybe 10 minutes and it'll heat it up real quick.
I know someone who didn't do that, so I'm mentioning
Right,
it.
I'm glad that you did, right, because you probably could just wrap it in foil too, but I like to to be safe, I like to double wrap it.
Is that one package of yeast then? The 2 1/4 teaspoons?
Yeah, I mean, I have it in the jar, but it's equivalent of one of the little packages if you can find it, because it's been really hard, it's really hard to find these days. I mean,
Okay.
I've had it for a couple months.
Karen Boren, do you still have a question? You have to push your space bar.
Yeah, I actually posted it, but I'll ask it.
Thank you.
Do you absolutely have to use that smidge of sesame oil? Because I do know somebody else who makes this and she said she doesn't use it. Do you notice a difference?
No, I mean, she just said it makes it a little richer.
Okay.
I mean, I've always used it, so I don't think, you're not going to notice a big difference.
Okay.
I'm going to
Marlene,
this
can you-
and let you know if it works.
Yes.
Can you say a little more about how do you make the dough? I mean, just describe how do you make the dough itself.
Making the dough? Okay, so going through the steps, so you first make a mixture of warm water, not hot. Warm water, a teaspoon of sugar, and
Don't put Granny Smith's, get Max. What if they don't have the Max?
Please, yeast,
Get
please,
both.
yeast to the
I'm
rest of
gonna
the
do mute.
people.
Yep.
You don't want Granny Smith?
All right, does somebody want to mute that?
Yeah, I'm going to mute everyone. You're going to have to unmute yourself, Marlene.
Oh,
Okay, so unmute yourself. Wait, hold on. Wait, you know what? I think I got it.
no, I didn't know how to do that. Okay.
Here, I did it. You're on again. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Yes.
All right, so I use my KitchenAid and I only use the paddle. So you make a mixture of it. Step one, the warm water, the yeast, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. And let that, dissolve. Leave it for 10 minutes and it should foam up. And that's what I was saying, that if you haven't used yeast and this doesn't foam up, that's the spot to get new yeast, because that's when it's activated. All right, after you wait 10 minutes, then you add next the eggs, the sugar, the salt, the oil, and mix that well. You slowly put in the flour. Again, I tried it with the hook on the KitchenAid. It didn't work very well. I like just using the paddle.
Oops.
Then you throw it on, again, a floured board, and with your hands knead it for like 10 minutes. Throw it in a bowl, a grease bowl, and you put a towel over it. And it needs to rest for an hour. After an hour, you go back to that and you give it a couple of punches, just knead it a little bit, cover it again for another hour. And then it's ready to start where we started today. So it's not difficult, it's just very time consuming. I mean, you don't have to be in the kitchen for 4 hours, but you do have to attend to it.
Okay, thank you.
I repeat.
Hey, thank you.
Marlene, I have a question.
Sure.
First of all, thank you very much for doing this. Are you planning on using that next week, or might you want to cut into it so we could see what the inside looks like?
I prefer not to. Is that okay?
What am I going to do? Thank you. Looks delicious.
Thank you. I've had a couple orders for them, so I've already made 4.
Nice.
And I don't think, yeah. Anything else that I can answer? But in general, Jamie Geller's recipes are really quite fun. There's another recipe going around, the apple roses, which are really fun to make. But if you feel like doing something different, take a look at that one. Well, I hope this was helpful. I hope I didn't speak too fast.
Good job, Marlene.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you.
You're welcome. L'Shana Tova, everyone.
Okay, so
Tova.
I'm going to try.
Thank you, Marlene.
Thank you.
If everyone can unmute themselves, first of all, I want to thank you again, Marlene, for this great idea of this apple challah recipe demonstration, and it was wonderful and very interesting. I want to bring up a couple of points because I asked you this when we were talking about it. For those of you like me who love cinnamon, when she put on the raw sugar, I'd asked her if you could add more cinnamon, and she said yes. So you can add more cinnamon before you cook it, along with the raw sugar. And of course, if you like cinnamon, you could change the ratio of sugar to cinnamon for the cinnamon sugar. Because in my family, cinnamon is loved, and we'd always put in much more cinnamon than one cinnamon to 2 sugar units. Now, I want to thank you all for joining us, and for those who came a little later, I set up the Zoom so that we can all, for those of you who want to stay for a while and visit with friends, the Zoom doesn't end for a while, so you can, like I said, visit and socialize. If you have any other questions that you think of, I sent to everybody my email address, and feel free to email me questions, and I'll ask Marlene on your behalf. And again, thank you for attending, and I hope you stay around for a little bit to visit because I haven't seen some of you in quite some time. And I'm sure the same for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Marlene.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene.
And thank you.
Shana Tova Matuka.
And L'Shana Tova to everyone, by the way. I can't believe
Thank you.
L'Shana's around the
Great job,
corner.
Marlene.
Yes, thank you, Marlene. It was